Yes, there are two strands of Sufism. In fact, in every study, you'll find that fundamentally it can be divided into two, as what Allah said in the Quran, that we created everything from pair, and from these two comes out, you know, many other dimensions of thought. So I think our friend is talking about Dr. Yasir Qadih's recent subject on Sufism, where he said there are two strands of Sufism, which is one is philosophical and the other is experiential. Definitely there is some truth to that, but it's not that precise because when you say Sufism, one is philosophy and the other is experiential. It's not exactly precise. So, because spirituality itself is experiential, it's experiential knowledge. It's not in a dimension of subject that you can attain by reading books or uh, listening to lectures and so on. So it's not because it is not information based. Spirituality is experiential. So there are two kinds of knowledge, and one is descriptive sciences, and the other is experiential. So descriptive sciences means what we mostly do, we pursue the subject. That means there's an subject and an object that's pursuing the subject. So it is information based, descriptive, observational, and experimental based. There's involved analysis and so on. So there's subject and object. But the spirituality itself, be it Sufism, Yogism, Taoism, or mysticism, though there's slight difference between spirituality and mysticism, but fundamentally, spirituality itself is experiential knowledge. In Sufism, we call it taste. So, the only dimension of knowledge that can be tapped into by going inwards. So, inwards means you go inward rather than outside. That means there's no subject and object, where the subject and object become one. Hmm. So, for example, descriptive knowledge means I study the roller coaster, the mechanics, the engineering of the roller coaster, how people feel, what is the excitement about. While in Sufism, you become that roller coaster by sitting in that roller coaster. So you become a roller coaster and you have the first hand direct uh, information or a direct knowledge of that subject matter. Now, this dimension of knowledge is open to every human being because it is something that is innate, something to do with your soul, something to do with your consciousness. And it involves definitely certain techniques. So that is actually experiential knowledge. Now, before I explain to you what is it, let me quote an important hadith. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that if you have seen me, you have seen me, because the devil cannot take his form. So if we put that aside, seeing Prophet aside, and understand the subject, meaning that your mind is unable to reenact or imitate whatever is in its subconscious reservoir. Because if you see your visions, if you see your experiences, most of them comes through whatever input from your external environment, stimuli, or whatever you have gathered through your life since young, through this apertures, your sight, your hearing, and all this sits in your subconsciousness. And when you start going inwards, you trigger those. elements. So the mind has an effect to recreate, redesign it in new fashion. But the problem is it's not an original source, right? So whatever it is, it will redefine it, it'll reenact it. It might have certain insights and futuristic ideas because that's how the mind works. Because if you see Einstein, all right, he had intuitive knowledge about light theories and so on, and it gave him some future insights. So similarly to those which are innovations such as sandpaper, needles, and so on. So these are all actually came from that intuitive part of the knowledge. So what happens is when we talk about experiential knowledge, uh, we have to have that fundamental descriptive sciences because without that, you will not be able to uncover many things. So Einstein uh, became Einstein was because he had that fundamental background in math. And when he had some intuitive insights, he worked backwards and able to do a breakthrough, a revolution, right? So, but in spirituality, this function of the mind is very dangerous because it can take you for a ride. You might believe whatever the mind is showing you, right? So, and you have no idea about it because you have no training regarding that. So when Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said in that particular hadith, we have seen him, we have seen because there's no images of him, there's no drawing of him, there's no portrait of him, there's no statue of him. So your mind is unable to replicate anything about it. And in that sense, when you have seen him, you have definitely seen him because the mind is unable to replicate anything like this. So, and this is an important function when we talk about the inner sciences of Sufism because, or spirituality rather, because we try to temporarily stop this rational mind from functioning, stop this physical eyesight or the mental eye from functioning temporarily, stop this hearing from functioning temporarily so that your higher senses, your higher sight, your higher hearing, and your intuitive part takes over. So, mind is a dangerous thing in spirituality. As the adage goes, right? The idle mind is a devil's workshop. So, in spirituality, when you try to hang that mind, suspend it, then your intuitive starts. So, now this is not something which is very strange, right? Because when we sleep, when we meditate, when we do zikr, we do have visions. We see without this, we hear without this, right? The only thing that does not happen for those who do not have control over the senses is that mm, you uh, you will not have control over what you are conscious about in your visions. But those who have trained themselves to have certain control and their consciousness works in a different way. Now, so there is a particular methodology for Sufism, and if all spirituality is so that it can bear fruits, yeah, but it can be redundant if you do not have the fundamental knowledge of the descriptive sciences, and it also depends whether you want to understand things directly in the form of visions, nothing beyond the Sharia law, or you just want to purify your akhlaq and your spiritual state. So there is also a two different thing, but this is all stems out from experiential knowledge.